People mistake my name for Bernie. Boring.
Steal the water here.
Yeah, go for it.
What's the pink stuff? Is it like this? I see. Makes sense.
What's up?
We're both going to go up there in a second. So, welcome to... So we're over.
Check 1, 2. Yep.
Are you good?
Good? Yes? Cool.
Well, thanks.
All right.
Answering questions.
Good evening, Nashville. Tonight we have with NashJS the actual impact of AI in the job market with Hunter Mitchell, Trinity Christiana, Daniel Johnson. I guess you want to. Sorry, you're hiding.
Still here.
And Mr. Chris Bybee. Just. No, technology. I'll set this up in advance. Okay. Okay. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Vaco. Brandon is our liaison there. If you're looking for a job, it's in the tech community. He's a good person to talk to about that kind of thing. If you'd like to join the discussion online, we have our NashDev Slack channel. We have our meetup page as well as our LinkedIn page. Right now, we're going to take a moment to ask whoever is hiring right now, if you'd make yourselves known in the tech field. Anybody hiring? Okay. Is anybody new? Make yourselves known. Got one new person, 2 new people, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wow, a bunch of new people. We're glad you're here. We don't bite. Hope you like pizza and punch, because that's what we got today. Do you want to speak? Would you like to sponsor? Do you have any news to share? BrettHughes@gmail.com, and that's his LinkedIn page. And then there's me, sebmarov@dev@gmail.com, my LinkedIn, and then we have our LinkedIn NashJS page. And today is a surprise giveaway. We'll have a raffle. There's going to be 2 different conferences, JS Nation and React Summit. If you can go in person to New York City, all the more power to you, or you can attend online if you want. You got them in November 17th and 18th. With that in mind, if you want to be in the raffle, all you have to do is just raise your hand and tell me your first name. Name? Justin. Justin, thank you. Matt. Okay. Ryan. Last name?
Ryan W.
Ryan W. Ryan S. Thank you. Frank. Daniel. Zane. One more time. Ray with a Z. Zay, no N. Z-A-Y. Z-A-I-N. I thought you said Ray, sorry. Zane, is that you? Y-U-N? Yun?
I'm doing this.
Brian with the B?
How's it going?
Does anyone else want to be in the raffle? It's just your name. We're drawing it here in like the next hour.
That's where my daughter goes.
Nice to meet you. Is there everybody in that wants to be in? All right,
I've been here for a couple of years.
that will come after our little
Nashville.
panel.
Okay. Yeah, I was born in Murfreesboro myself.
That's where I live now.
Oh yeah, what part?
Over kind of near the airport, Northfield area.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I grew up other side of town near Blackman, Veterans Parkway. Before it was Veterans Parkway, it used to be a little curvy 2-lane road.
Okay.
Bunch of farmland.
Yeah.
Tonight, with our panel, our moderator, Hunter Mitchum, is a Tennessee native from Murfreesboro, has been in recruiting for 8.5 years, works almost exclusively with software engineers from ICU Leadership. He works with a company that partners solely with seed stage to Series B, backed by firms such as A16Z, General Catalyst, Sequoia, Redpoint, and more. Give it up for your moderator. Trinity, co-founder, director of technical education, and Rep Sec, a recipient of the NTC Software Engineer of the Year Award, Played Like a Girl Next Gen Leader Award. She's a proud member of the neurodiverse community, 5 years of experience. She is driven to ensure that technology, especially AI, becomes a tool that levels the playing field. Her vision is to harness AI not just as a productivity enhancer, but as a transformative system that accelerates growth for careers and unlocks opportunities for neurodiverse technologies worldwide. Daniel. Daniel Johnson has worked at Netflix as a UI engineer for the past 5 years, had a role in developing their intern new grad programs, their hiring process for senior engineers, and has been an active interviewer. Before Netflix, he was a manager at startups in Boston and NYC with consulting firms. Always enjoyed the people and aspect of software engineering and even taught at boot camps. Come on down. Mr. Chris Bybee, a Nashville native, Chief Delivery Officer at Ronan Consulting, and veteran technology leader with 2 decades of experience in fintech, healthcare, and IT. He's held senior roles at Jack Henry, Trinisys, and Ronan, where he helps organizations tackle complex technology initiatives, from modernizing financial platforms to delivering HIPAA and high-trust healthcare solutions. This is your panel for tonight. Give them a warm welcome.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here. I've never moderated an event before. Taylor Destin was going to do this, but he couldn't be here. And he said I was a yapper, so he wanted me to moderate. But I have introverted days and extroverted days, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for putting this on, Ted. Thanks to Brandon as well. So the way we're probably going to do this is we're going to start off with some starter questions, just kind of get things flowing. And of course, we'll get questions from the audience as well. But we'd love to kind of just start, with our panel here. Not going to call you guys, just speak up if you want to speak. Let's just kind of start with AI in general, right? Like, it's been 3 years since ChatGPT kind of came onto the scene. So just kind of curious, like, how has it impacted your day-to-day as a software engineer? Maybe not ChatGPT, but anything similar as well.
Okay,
Thoughts?
I'll go. So I would say it's definitely changed the day-to-day, right? I mean, I use AI tools a decent number of hours per day. And even if I don't particularly want to use them myself, all the people that I'm working with are using them, right? So regardless of how you feel about it, everybody else in your workplace is probably using it. So you really have to adapt to that. I would say it's made me moderately faster as a software engineer. I don't know if it's significantly increased the speed per se, but it's definitely how work happens now.
Yeah. I would add to that it makes you recalibrate what's possible. 5 years ago, if you asked people to build an app that can do what current AI is doing, every day, you would have gotten responses of, that would take, tons of time to implement and isn't, technically possible. But now with the tooling and the capabilities and the expectations and everything, you just continually, it seems every quarter, every 6 months, you hear something new. That just makes you rethink of what's completely possible. And so that makes it a pretty exciting time. And it reminds me a lot of, if you've been around, and I'll date myself, but if you've been around from when, cloud was a big thing, when mobile was a big thing, you realize we're at a point now that's another inflection point where this is now a new big thing that is a shift in the technology industry.
Yeah, so I think the term AI has always been around, but I think now it's just more popularized, especially with it now being more integrated within, because I kind of have the perspective of using it as an engineer as well as using it as an educator as well to mentor multiple students. I've mentored since in the 3 years probably, actually really started mentoring right before AI got the boom, so I really got to see the whole transition from how I was using it, how my mentees were using it, but yeah, I feel like it's now more integrated in our work days now instead of instead of an add-on. You kind of know, hey, now you have access to Copilot, now you can read all of your current business logic through Copilot, where before you couldn't even do that because they were too scared to, give out that information. But I know at the very beginning of AI as an educator, we're always scared about how is this person that I'm teaching going to abuse this tool. So that's always the first thing we think about. So we remove that barrier, and I feel like beginners, when they jump in, they always want it to do what they want it to do, not what it should do. And so I think from me, it has made me more efficient. I agree with you that it hasn't made me move faster, but more efficient, because I feel like as an engineer, you shouldn't be moving to move faster. I know a lot of businesses are pushing us to move faster because of AI, but I think it just allows us to offload a lot of these things. And again, if you probably heard from the intro, I'm also coming from a neurodivergent standpoint, because that's really what our business is really focusing on. So if anything I say interests you, we actually have, little plug, if you are interested in joining our community, we are a neurodiverse community that is just here to help neurodiverse technologists succeed within their career. So we currently actually have 8 free seats open for our community members to join one of our learning courses. So if you want to join, reppedin, reppedin.tech. And if you want to get that later, you can find me afterwards. But yeah, I think the answer to the question is yes, it has changed a lot.
Absolutely.
So.
Is there anywhere you guys are seeing it falling short right now where you think it will continue to help you in your workday, where you guys are seeing massive improvements or anything like that?
Where AI is falling short?
Yeah. Maybe where there's some weaknesses of it, where you think it might improve.
So, show of hands if you guys have tried some of the vibe coding tools. Haven't tried the vibe. So if you play with those, you probably run into shortcomings pretty quickly. But you also see those tools improving steadily, and with the models now having much larger context windows, being able to look at the entire repo and be able to be more effective at what they do. I think that's going to continue to improve, and those vibe coding solutions are going to get better and better, as they go. Be able to tackle more complex things more reliably. Right now, they're not ready for prime time in a lot of situations.
Yeah. Any other thoughts there?
I can give you an example. So one of the things I worked on recently was I had to migrate an entire repository from Webpack to Vite. And I was like, let me ask Cursor how I think I should do this. And it told me it's going to take me 3 to 6 months. It's going to be very risky. I should just not even try. And so that wasn't really an option. We'd have to do it. Nor do we have 3 to 6 months to do it. And so partly my fault. Like the prompt wasn't very good. But I think one of the downfalls is that if you're not careful with how you prompt it, you can end up with answers that don't really help or don't make sense. And if you just go with that, right? Like part of the challenge with AI is you have to know when to disagree with it, right? And know when to push back a little bit. And I think especially for folks that are newer to the industry, that's a little bit of a challenging thing. It's like, well, but it says I should do this. It's probably right, when actually it's not right a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. That's one of the pitfalls of AI, is that it's not human. That's what I think. And I think as we, as humans, start to interact with it more, of course, it's going to learn from us. So if you're too scared of it, it's okay. You don't have to touch it. But if you use it as much as you can, because if you want to see your face within those responses in AI, you have to use it. So I think as people start to use it more, and it starts to hopefully not become more human, but just start to learn our patterns a little bit more as different types of people use it. But yeah, I think that's the downfall, just the amount of time it's just expanded. And so humans just can't catch up.
Yeah. Kind of funny example on our end, right? I'm a recruiter, so a lot of times now we have our AI note takers that are on our video calls. We don't even have to type, things of that nature. We'll plug in our transcript of the call into ChatGPT or whatever, and also the job description. We'll say, hey, write a submittal for us to send this candidate to the hiring manager. And oftentimes it will lie to me. I'd be like, why did you lie? And it'd be like, I want it to give the candidate a better chance of getting the job. And like every 2 weeks this will happen, and I'll have to go back and slap its hand and say, I told you not to do that anymore, and it like forgets, right? So I'm curious if you guys see anything like that in coding, with like setting rules and it forgetting or something like that, right? But
Definitely.
It's definitely overly optimistic much of the time.
I definitely have arguments with ChatGPT about, no, I'm right, you're wrong, even though, but yeah, it definitely has its own mind of its own sometimes.
I get an attitude with it, and I'm like, I don't know why I'm getting an attitude with you, you don't have emotion, but maybe one day it will, I don't know. Okay, another question here. Do you think AI is lowering the barrier to entry into tech or raising the expectations for what beginners should know?
Let's go first.
I'll start on that one if you want. I do think it's making, in a lot of ways, it makes tech a lot more accessible to a broader audience. An example I would give would be, so our company, we're working as consultants with firms all the time. Before AI was as prevalent as it was, you might be approached by someone who had an idea, and maybe they would send you a PowerPoint with some diagrams, and they had done some whiteboarding sessions. Now we'll be approached by people who've gone in and built a prototype using an AI tool. They'll be in Replit or something, and they've built out a very lightweight POC that it's functional, and it kind of works, and it conveys the idea, but it is further along than just a PowerPoint or a sketch. And they've already socialized that demo internally in their organization and gotten sign-off and approval from some people. So, and they weren't even a tech person. They just kind of went in via natural language and got it that far. And so that level of accessibility, is broader than just the coding community. And so in that way, it makes it much more, I think, approachable. But then at the same time, I think you do have a gap there where now expectations are different given some of the tools that are available and the proficiencies that you can have with them, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the barrier of entry to prototype and to kind of take an idea and just test it out has gone way down, right? But the barrier of entry to become a professional software engineer has not changed. And I think a lot of people think that, I can just use AI and I'll be able to get a job, right? And I don't know that that's really the way it is. You still have to know the fundamentals, you still have to know computer science, you still have to know when to disagree with AI and actually do something different, right? And that knowledge is hard to learn from just using AI?
I think both, which most of these answers I'm going to feel both about the same ways. But for lowering the barrier, I also agree that it's still, you still have to understand the fundamentals, right? You still have to know what to prompt it, because ChatGPT is not going to read our minds. I don't want it to get to that point. Please don't read my mind. That's too scary for me. But I think from a different standpoint of not just learning how to code, but how to work as a professional, it's more than just coding, right? Some of it is figuring out how to properly translate something in an email, saying, hey, I need this, given to me. A lot of the soft skills that a lot of people who are neurodiverse typically get help with during school years, if they got that. But now I kind of see AI, particularly things like the quick ones you can jump in, like ChatGPT, the ones that are easily available to the general public, has allowed a lot of neurodiverse people to offload a lot of the things that most neurotypical people just get naturally, right? It comes more naturally. I don't want to say naturally, because you might be neurotypical and still have difficulties communicating, right? But people who are neurodiverse, it kind of helps balance it. And I kind of view it very much like medication, right? Medication, you always use that as a tool. It's never the solution to the issue, right? So you kind of use AI as a tool. So I think it all comes from the mindset, because I think from the business standpoint, I think that they have certain expectations just because they don't know tech like engineers do. They just expect for a product to go through, right? And I think that it might raise expectations for people to be able to move faster instead of efficiently. And I think that in the long term, we all know what happens when you spin something up in 2 weeks that should have taken 3 months. It is going to crumble down before that extra deadline happens, right? So I think you got to think of it from both sides. But yeah, I do agree that it's hopefully sooner rather than later, as things start to calm down, we start to have more processes and we start to have more of an understanding between like the business use or the business expectations and the individual, and we'll figure it out, hopefully. So.
Okay. Great answers there. Do you think AI will change salaries for developers in the coming years?
That's a hard one.
We don't have to have an answer.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think it's going to change salaries. I think it will change the positions. I think economies and everything will factor into salaries, but I think just the nature of the work will continue to change as the tools get better and the tasks that are done will shift. So you might do more review of code and correction of AI and giving it your insight, and maybe you're working with, you've got a few agents working on your behalf to get an implementation done. So your day might change a little bit, but I don't know that your salary and that your role will change that much. I just think the tasking is really going to shift.
Is anyone using agents yet?
Yes.
Like in production at Netflix, or?
We use agents as a development tool.
Okay.
As far as like you're running the actual process, that's kind of a different topic. But we have people that are running, multiple agents simultaneously to do various tasks.
Okay.
To again try to get more done.
Yeah.
With mixed results.
Right.
Within our community, we actually use agents to help answer a lot of questions. So we have just different spaces, and we just give it all this information. So hopefully when we're asleep in our beds at 2 a.m., if someone has a question, they can at least get some form of answer. So yeah, we do use them as well.
Okay. Great. This question is very forward-thinking. I kind of thought through this one, and it's like, man, I don't know that I have a great answer there. So curious what you guys would come up with. But if we were having this conversation again in 2 years, what changes do you think we'd be talking about?
That's a really hard one.
So I've been at this for a while. I've been in software for roughly 20 years or so. When I started, HTML and CSS it was like a big thing, right? It was like there was a lot of pride around making semantic XHTML, right? And like all these, they're like these CSS sites that just like show off your cool designs, right? Fast forward 20 years, those are largely a commodity, right? Like how many people really write CSS now from scratch? And so I think looking ahead a couple of years, I think the same will happen to some other technologies, right? I mean, I don't think JavaScript's going to go away, but I think the last meetup was around using Figma with Cursor or something like that, right? So you can imagine a world where more and more of the kind of design to implementation type tasks are just automated, right? And so the kind of craft of doing that by hand, I think will somewhat start to fade away. But when you get into like distributed systems and scaling, especially at big tech scale, I don't know that that's going to go away. I think that'll still be, you'll still need human presence in those things.
Yeah, and I think too with that then learning, same way now, if you know CSS back to back, you'll probably find a job now because not a lot of people want to do CSS, right? So that also, I feel like, just brings another opportunity, but I don't have an answer for in 2 years because that's everything can change in 2 years. AI can go away, the world can go away as well.
CSS is like the new COBOL.
and SAS is in now. Buy CSS SAS. But yeah, so I think knowing all of the fundamentals and knowing like not only that it does something, but why is going to become a lot more important because our prompts are going to have to become more advanced because now, right, you can't go to AI and just say, hey, I have a problem. You can't go to a doctor's office and say, hey, I have a problem, right? So I just think that we'll learn more how to either integrate it more into our lives, hopefully for the better. And yeah, so I think that's as much as I can see into the future for now.
I think it's going to become just another tool in the toolkit in some ways. Back when cloud technologies were the big hot new thing, and a lot of the application development was shifting around that, people had a learning curve to go through to become familiar and comfortable with what that meant. But now it's kind of a given that people are going to have some type of a cloud portion of their solution. I think the AI is going to be the same way. That most application development, most work that's going to be done, it will just be assumed that where possible you're going to leverage AI, whether it's in a workflow or in a language app or summarization or analytics, what have you. That's going to be the de facto way, and that shift will bring with it a lot of a need to retire a bunch of legacy applications that don't leverage those type of capabilities, and then depending upon how well some of these other I mentioned the vibe coding tools, depending upon how well they're adopted, they're also capable of writing some atrocious things. So there could be a lot of work trying to fix implementations that that AI has written and haven't been well managed and deployed.
So I can't vibe code.
I'm sorry?
So I can't write code, vibe coding?
You could. Sure,
Yeah,
you could.
why not? Okay, I'll try. It's interesting you talk about distributed systems. As was discussed earlier, everything I do now is for startups, all my recruiting. So we're supporting like 30 startups at the moment, and I would say 28 of those are AI startups. Like, it's insane. So the thing that keeps coming back to the forefront from hiring managers when we're asked, what are you looking for? It's, hey, distributed systems experts. Like, we want distributed systems experts. We're, people who really think about scalability and things of that nature. So I think that is going to become. I think you'll just start to see that pattern a lot more in job openings, right? Like, what are you looking for? A senior engineer, strong in distributed systems. I think you'll definitely start to see that trend with AI. So. And I'm not that technical or things like that. I can hardly tell you what distributed systems are, but I'm just repeating back, right? I'm just being honest, right? I have probably 10 to 15 conversations a week with hiring managers, and I talk to probably 30 engineers a week, and that's the trend I'm seeing, is definitely leaning into distributed systems. So.
Can I answer that question twice?
Yeah.
So something else I've been thinking a lot about is that I think AI for all the concern about it that's out there, right? I think it actually is pushing us towards things we should have been doing all along, right? So the job of a software engineer is largely to solve business problems, right? And yet, a lot of us, much of the time, get caught up in just like writing the code that then actually solves the problem, right? But I think a lot of the roles, to your point, around role shifting a bit, it's becoming more of a focus around product, right? Solving business problems, creating products with code or AI or whatever as a tool. And really, it should have been that way all along, right? But as AI starts to be able to write more of that code and solve more of the technical aspects, us as engineers, we're freed up to then more focus around solving the actual business problem using technology.
Right, I like that.
Exactly, because AI is very similar to probably when books were, I don't know when books were invented, but think of it of like having to learn about software engineering when there was no internet, right? Then the internet came. Then after the internet, we got Google that allowed us to search the internet, or whatever you want to use, Yahoo, Google, Duck. But now we have AI, right? Now we have something that still right before AI, I was doing the same thing that I'm doing with AI now, typing in everything that I would have put into Google, but now that it can read my language better, I now type just more conversational for using it more like a rubber duck, right? So instead of having to go in and type JavaScript for loop, right, I can say, I have this issue, and especially in the educational aspect of it, saying I have this issue or my mentee has this issue, what is the best way, especially because as you get experience, you kind of get far removed from being a beginner. So sometimes it's really hard to remember how to explain things. So again, there's still that human being the middleware between the where the information is going for me, because I would still judge it, making sure that my mentee will still work for them, right? But it kind of allows me to translate that, especially as a neurodiverse person again. So yeah, I think it's just another blip. Something will happen afterwards, like say actually we've seen it. You went from AI to then ChatGPT, and then all these different things that are built on top of that. So I think it's just a blip that's just we're gonna have another one later. We'll see which one's next.
Yeah, love it. Are there any AI tools that aren't well known yet that you guys love or that you've recently discovered?
Ooh, she shared with me something I think it's called OBE, or something, where you, the free trial you only get 2 questions, but what you can do is you can say, just type a sentence or just type in a topic, but it will create a whole course for you. So it will create, first it'll create a course, then it'll create learning guide. So it'll give you like a podcast on the actual lecture. So it'll say, hey, here's a lecture for it with a 20-minute podcast. It'll even give you like word quizzes and everything. So it's changed. I never thought I'd see, but it's changed quickly. But yeah, that's a cool one that I've learned about.
I think I use tools that are fairly common. I mean, I spend most of the time either in Cursor or in Cloud Code. So those are kind of the 2 that I bounce back and forth between. I use ChatGPT for like some personal stuff, but it's work-wise, it's one or the other of those 2. Yeah,
I think most of the developers on our team, Cloud Code is very popular. Writer, GitHub Copilot, those are all the sort of the go-tos. But I think the for the non-coders, and I'm a non-coder these days, but and this is really more of a feature that I've seen now across multiple AI tools, is the project knowledge feature, which is basically like making RAG available to the AI. So whether it's artifacts and project knowledge in Claude, or if you go to Notebook LM, and you add documents there, and then have it, have that in context when you're asking questions or building podcasts for you. Those are super useful. You save a lot of time copying and pasting and trying to get information into the AI for it to work with. So.
Yeah, absolutely. For the common software engineering team, do you think the team makeup might look different in 2 to 3 years? Maybe there's less engineers, or maybe there's just like different. There's going to be different functions perhaps, but like, what do you think a typical engineering team might look like now? And I guess that's maybe not an unfair question because there's no typical software engineering team. They're all different in general, but on average, do you think we'll see some trends on team makeup?
think it's very dependent upon the kind of stage and size of the company, right? So if you're a 10-person startup, that's significantly different from Netflix. So it's hard to answer that generically. I'd say where I'm at, I don't think it's going to change that much. Largely teams, or we don't even call them teams, but like groups of people working on a project. It's going to be engineering, product, design, maybe a couple of others mixed in, but like those are the kind of the core three. And I don't know that goes away regardless of what the technology tools are.
Yeah, because I agree, because you still need to have that specialty, right? You can't just say, oh, these are 5 engineers and they are all just engineers. They just build stuff for me, right? You have these different teams. Again, I'm glad that you added the last part, because I would have said, yeah, it depends. I don't think it's going to change too much, because I still think that we're still going to have to think the same. We're still going to have to problem solve the same. It's just the code, the tools that we use, is going to be just a lot easier to learn how to use those tools, because I'm pretty sure the next few years we're going to have probably another framework to learn, right? Another language to learn, because tech is just constantly, luckily, tech, we're used to all these changes, right? They might go in waves, but we're used to it. So I don't think the landscape's going to change that much, personally.
Okay.
I was going to say, so here's another way to ask it, which I think might be more interesting, is curious what you think about generalists versus specialists, right? And does that change, right? Because like the makeup of a team, sure, there's still somebody doing technology, but is there a trend, either from generalists, now more specialist roles, or the opposite direction, or does that not change either?
Well, going back to earlier when we were talking about accessibility and things, I do think, again, it's a shift of those existing roles, right? So for example, business analysts, I think, are going to have a much easier time in requirement definition world, both in terms of getting information from the stakeholders, presenting them and getting their feedback on wireframes or the workflows, what have you. I think it's going to greatly assist those, and I think you're going to continue to see some maturing of your CI/CD pipelines, where now that AI is becoming more and more baked into solutions, you're going to need to make sure that the prompting is consistent from build to build to build, and that the outputs are the quality that you expect, and that they don't break. And that's something that's new that we just haven't really had before. So I mean, some of the details are going to shift, but the interests will stay the same, and I think the time frames hopefully will compress down. I mean, hopefully not too crazy, but they'll make it so that it's easier and quicker to move through an iteration than it was previously. But I think those roles and the interests that they have will largely stay the same. It's just the tools and the tasking will shift.
Yeah, ditto. And I think the only thing that might change is, again, the question that you answered earlier, is just the barrier of entry to becoming an expert. Because I feel, especially with people who are just now getting into tech, I found a hard part for them to decide is, okay, what do I want to be an expert in? Do I want to be a designer? Do I actually want to be a software engineer? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? And I think AI is a great way for you to rubber duck and to kind of get great examples of, like, you can go and ask, what's a typical day in the life of a designer, right? Because it'll go and it'll find blog posts, it'll find articles, right? You could even specifically say, I want personal like anecdotes, right? I want things from blog posts, things that people have actually said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think it'll just, again, same way like books and reading and television, it'll help bring to light some different things, but I don't think it'll change, it'll just change how quickly people realize that they want to be an expert or can easily become an expert. So.
Right. I feel like this has kind of been the most common question I've gotten over the last 2 or 3 years, so curious your take. Do we think there are going to be less engineering jobs, or are companies going to do more?
Okay. I think if we look more broadly, right, I think knowledge-based jobs where you're sitting at a desk doing something, right, those jobs that can be automated will start to fade away, right? And this is just in general, not specific to tech. I don't know if there will be less software engineers. I think there is a little bit of a trend around entry levels where some people are starting to think of those jobs as not as necessary, which I think if you think that, you're doing it wrong, right? Like the goal of hiring somebody entry level is not for them to do the kind of routine manual labor, so to say. It's because you're getting a different perspective. Like when we hire interns or new grads, like if you didn't know they were an intern or a new grad, you can barely even tell because they're doing the exact same work that everybody else is doing. So I don't think there'll be less jobs, I guess is a different way to say it. But I think in a lot of industries where, if your job is to sit at a desk and just do data entry, yeah, that's probably going to go away. You should probably start looking for something else, right? But software, it enables companies to go faster, right? Every company wants to do more. But I don't think the answer to that is to hire less people to try to do more.
Yeah, I think, in the near term, there's reports out there now of a reduction in hiring of entry level, across different industries. But from a software perspective, I think more people are going to be creating software than ever before. It's because it's easier and the tools are getting better and better. So you're going to see it's one of those the easier something gets to do, it doesn't necessarily mean it goes, you'll see the volume of it increase, and that'll create even additional opportunities, for even more software engineering. So I think it's right now we're in a sort of an adoption curve, and some of the entry-level positions, to your point, that were really task-specific around data entry or roles that involve a lot of simple question and answer or customer service over the phone type roles will change, significantly. But I think software development is going to be pretty solid.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds me of, not that I was there when this happened, but kind of reminds me of when they started making machines do factory people's jobs. And the only scene that I have, I don't know if any of y'all have seen the weird Johnny Depp Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So I just always remember in the beginning when his dad, he was a toothpaste, he was the person who screwed toothpaste caps on the top, and then the machine came in and took away his job. But they ended up hiring him back to work on the machine. So I just think that it's going to probably even create possibly more entry-level jobs, because now you can have someone working on who knows about the mechanics, someone who knows how to actually program it. So I think we might see a little bit of an uptick here, possibly. I don't know, I'm not an analyst. Don't quote me on that. But I actually see it as a way of allowing more people who are beginners to be able to get into the field. Because I know a lot of people are trying to find an engineering job, but they end up finding like a product job or a designer job until they slowly, become an engineer. So I think that might happen.
I think there's a difference in like the current state of the job market, which is tough, right?
Yeah.
And then like the outlook for the future long-term for software engineers. I think those are two different conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people try to blend them together. But I think, we'll probably talk about hiring and job market stuff at some point, but I think that's kind of like a separate conversation from just broadly speaking, our software engineer job is going to go away, and I think the answer to that is no.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. It's funny, Chris, that you mentioned customer service agents, because of my 30 startups, like 5 are building customer service agents. Like the biggest thing I'm seeing right now in New York and San Francisco. It's crazy. But we do have some other questions we can get to, but before we get too far along, what questions do you guys have?
Yeah, I've got several.
Good.
I'll just ask a couple of them. So I guess I could just blend a couple of these that I have together. So specifically at Netflix or any of the companies where you are, I'd be curious to know about if you've observed like a higher number of defects on teams or initiatives that are really pushing basically a very AI generation forward strategy. And then the other question that may be related to this is related to the generalist versus specialist. Do you think that specialists are necessary to help mere mortals not be snowed by an LLM response, where an LLM could present something that's very compelling, seems right when you read it, but could have a subtle mistake that could cost $1 million, in 6 months time. Thank you.
Well, you mentioned Netflix, so I guess I'll go first. I don't think there's a part of Netflix more than any other that's like pushing on AI. I think it's a pretty consistent kind of effort across the entire engineering org. We do have like dedicated AI groups that are like building a lot of the foundational platforms that we work on. And one of the pros or cons we're going to look at for bigger companies is there's many platform layers, right? So a lot of the AI tooling that we're using is built on top of many other things. And so that's being adopted, pretty consistently across the company. I work in ads right now, which is probably the fastest growing part of Netflix, and so we're moving super fast and breaking a lot of things. But I don't think that's because of AI. I think it's because of we are building our entire ad stack from scratch and need to get there pretty quickly. I think AI is enabling us to do that to some extent. I don't think it's like the issues, and they're somewhat public, right? When we've done some live events that didn't go so well in the beginning, like that was not because of AI, right? But I think again, AI is enabling us to go, at a faster pace.
Are you using AI for review?
Like in a pull request?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we've got a number of different, and we're kind of exploring options for this. We've got a number of different kind of bots, if you will, within our GitHub. And so when you make a pull request, right, it'll kind of analyze it and do its own review of it, and then humans also go through it. I think with mixed reviews, right, like some of the comments it leaves are pretty good, some make absolutely no sense. So you do have to still have somebody go through and kind of take a pass at it, but even over the last year, like they are getting better. So I think someday that code review process will be, at least when it gets to human, it'll be the only things that actually matter. Not why is this a double quote, not a single quote, or like why like dumb stuff like that shouldn't be in there. But yeah, those tools are being used quite a bit.
And so do I understand your response? Basically, if I were to sum it up, do I understand correctly that basically maybe what we could perceive as an increased defects rate is basically just a factor of going so fast, and we're just seeing a compressed timeline whereas we would see these spread out over a longer period. It just appears or it feels somehow.
Help me understand the increased defect rate. Like, are you speaking about like Netflix specifically, or?
Just generally speaking. So like on an org team, like on some product.
Yep.
There are going to be defects that come up from time to time.
Sure.
And one thing that I noticed in a prior company that I worked for is that I think the more that we relied on these tools, a lot of that stuff started to slip through the QA processes.
Yeah.
And maybe you just have a very good and probably do have an excellent system at Netflix for avoiding those types of issues. But I mean that's sort of where I'm curious, like how if you are avoiding that successfully, how?
Yeah, so I guess a couple things, and I'll keep trying to keep this brief. So like I would say like the culture, at least at Netflix, is not to vibe code things, right? So yes, we use AI, but we're not just saying, hey, here's a feature, go build it while I have lunch, right? So we're not quite to that point yet, nor do I think we'll get there. And there's a lot of different levels of protection before stuff goes to prod for the more critical systems, which again comes from being at a large company, right? If you're a startup and you're running fast, a lot of those checks and balances don't exist, right? But I think at least where I am, like you have to try pretty hard to break things or have something just go completely wrong you weren't expecting, which does happen as you've seen. But again, I don't attribute that to AI necessarily.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep this brief too, but in the implementations that we've done, one that comes to mind that I thought would be maybe a little bit more prone to things like that was a clinical implementation dealing with some healthcare and patient backgrounds. And in healthcare, there's no room for error. Like you've got to have as close to 100% accuracy as you possibly can. And I think you got to be really careful when you're building those systems to put really good guardrails around the AI if it's included in the system. And so we went into that solution kind of, I think, maybe expecting the worst, in terms of what that might be. But when it was delivered and got into production, the AI portion worked great. We didn't really have defects at that level, but it introduced a new workflow, and the user's adoption of the workflow was where things started to stumble. And if you think kind of outside the scope of AI and look at what projects are delivering and what the level of change that those projects are bringing into a given set of tasks or role within an organization, it's really important that for the tool to be successful, it not only has to work well and be defect free, but it's got to be adopted and used. So you also have to really promote within those business teams or the organizational teams, operational teams, so they understand why the tool is being brought in, and they understand how it affects their workflow, and they kind of factor that into their new day going forward, so that they embrace the tool and understand how to use it. But I haven't seen a lot of increased defect rates. I mentioned that earlier that some of the vibe coding tools just weren't quite ready for, like you said, like code this feature and I'm going to take a lunch break. They're definitely not there yet, but there are some really, really helpful utilities within those tools that make your day a lot easier. Especially from a code documentation. If you guys don't know if you've tried like Devon AI, will take your entire repo and create a terrific wiki of all of the business logic and how it's designed, how it's structured. Super helpful. That would take you weeks of just poring over code and trying to write documentation yourself, and it does that in minutes. It's super helpful. So for those type of things, I think you get time back. You definitely get time back.
And for me, I can share a different perspective from helping like a group of people learn, and mainly using like project-based things. And of course, beginners are always going to have defects in their code. Mm-hmm. But I've seen them actually feel more comfortable to experiment with what they're building, though. Typically making sure that, for me, making sure that they fully understand the whole CRUD functionality and the whole different types of dealings with different types of data is like the base level. But I've seen a lot of people, especially when they're working on a project that they're very passionate about, they're like, I want to add a modal. And so instead of waiting for to ask a question from me or to have to go to Google and type, they actually were not too scared to go to an LLM and actually start experimenting more. So I've seen my mentees just actually do more recently with LLMs because they feel more comfortable. I think because AI is, at first they were scared of it. They're like, hey, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm scared. But now I've seen them really embrace it more, and I think it also comes from the standpoint of trying to make sure that they understand how to use it best, right? Because that's always a foundation. Same way we have to know how to, same way we have to know our language, we, as an educator, have to make sure that they know how to use their tools properly. So I've just seen more experiments. I can't speak to the mistakes, because people learning always make mistakes, but I've seen experiments a lot.
Great. Do you have any other questions?
I have one more. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe not. If it's not interesting, don't answer it. But I've heard of so AI from sort of ranges on a spectrum from a more, it's basically a probability machine. And so in the use cases that you guys have been exploring, have you found yourself bumping up against edges with generative AI use cases versus ML versus a script? And how are you making a choice, between positioning that slider where it's like I'm trying to have a deterministic system, or I realize that this is a situation that can be expressed probabilistically, and it's okay to have some kind of variance in in where the result lands.
It's a very interesting question. Imagine you're an engineer at Netflix. You're working on the delivery of ads, right? So you're watching a Christmas football game and there are ads, right? And one of the deliveries for that doesn't work, right? And your job is to triage that, right? And you're using AI as a tool to try to triage that, but it gives you different answers each time you ask it, right? Well, how do you know which one of those answers is actually correct, right? That's a hard problem. And there's a lot of examples of things like that, right? And so we are experimenting a lot of different ways of trying to bring the different answers at least closer together. There's a lot of different techniques for that, but I would say it's definitely an ongoing challenge. In a similar way, one of the things I've been thinking about is creating dashboards or landing pages, right? Historically, there are two ways to make a dashboard. You either opinionatedly tell somebody, here's your dashboard, go forth and use it, or you give them tools that say, hey, make your own dashboard, right? Drag and drop and widgets and all the things, right? Now with AI, I think there's a third option of, well, use the AI to take all of the information it has about you, your role, what you've done recently, the data, and surface what it thinks is important. What if you reload the page a couple times and it gives you different things that it thinks are important? That's also not ideal, right? So I think there's a lot of cases like that where we're trying to bring the answers closer together, but it's an ongoing challenge for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on part of it, which is awareness that the generative AI isn't a golden hammer for every problem, right? So understanding where ML is a good fit, understanding where you have a deterministic need, and understanding whether or not, that'll help you understand whether you're okay with the probabilistic nature of using a model for that case. A lot of times it's just not going to be the tool that you need to apply to the problem, but really understanding the problem well first is the first part, and then I think from there you can work backward into, okay, which technology is the best one. And there's definitely maybe a little, I won't call it a knee-jerk reaction, but there is an inclination right now in some places to just kind of, everyone's just heard this buzzword AI so much, and they just kind of assume that AI is going to be this silver bullet approach, and it'll get brought up as a way to go right now. But you really need to first start with the problem and find the fit that you need, instead of starting with the technology and trying to figure out where it can be put to solve a problem.
It's because of challenges like this that software engineers are not going to go away, right? That's why we're still needed.
Yeah. And that also goes back, and this might be the educator and me tying things together, that also goes back to why we need experts, right? We need experts to help that junior figure out, should I put this in an LLM? Should I put this here, right? Because in engineering, how it should be, is we're all collaborating to solve a problem, right? So hopefully as we learn a little bit more and start to kind of condense, like what you mentioned, the output of what AI gives you, I think we'll be able to have more experts to really help answer that question. So.
What other questions do we have?
So kind of a hypothetical, if you were to say, let's you're a consultant for an AI company, and an engineering organization has brought you in to introduce AI tools into their organization, and they're asking you what KPIs they should be measuring with the introduction of those tools into their organization. What are some KPIs that you would say they should be measuring, and what are some that you say they should not be measuring?
I would, my initial response would be, I'll flip the situation. So they're bringing AI in, but they're bringing it in for a reason, and the reason should be that there are already known KPIs about their business. There's already known pain points that they're looking to solve, and they should have data that backs that up. So what your definition of success would be around that engagement is going to be, okay, when we bring this AI in, we're going to solve this problem, and this problem will go from this number that we're tracking today down to here. That's our goal. Now we're going to apply things to get it's not necessarily that there aren't additional data points that you could track about how well the AI is doing its job over time and monitoring it, looking for drift into different things, but fundamentally you really need to start with a really good definition of success around what the business pain points are in the present, and then look at how AI is going to be able to bring that down or bring that up, or whatever your goal would be.
Well, What would you say is the negative of KPIs that they should not be measuring with AI tools?
The negative of KPIs they should not be measuring. Lines of code.
Lines of code accepted. from
Lines.
LLM.
Yeah, I mean, generally, you should not be trying to measure velocity based on those types of metrics, right?
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be bringing in AI to make everybody go faster, per se.
I agree. Y'all said everything I would have said.
Maybe a follow-up to that would be, what are KPIs that like Netflix, say, is using with code assist tools?
What does KPI stand for?
Key performance indicator?
Like the actual tools themselves, like Cursor versus Claude Code versus
Right,
whatever.
yeah, like if I'm going to bring these two tools into my organization, how do I determine which one's best? Say, like, are there anything within your organizations that they're measuring as they're introducing these tools?
I mean, we certainly track usage. Like, we actually have like leaderboards for fun, almost, of like who's using the most tokens. I was leading for about 30 minutes one day. But no, I think it's a lot. It's very subjective, right? So a lot of it is done via surveys. A lot of it's done via, just kind of getting a general sense around what's actually helping people, what's not. What is the industry doing? Like, where's the industry moving? Because it moves very fast. One day Cursor's better, the next day Claude's better. You never know. Tomorrow there'll be something completely new. So like a lot of it's kind of trying to balance those things with keeping us up to date with the industry, as well as just not getting in the way of engineers and actually finding things that really do help. And the best way to do that is oftentimes to just ask them, right? Not necessarily try to numerically figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's very similar to almost determining whether to use Confluence for documentation or Google Docs, right? It's you still have one goal of, first, I need to document something. We need to have some place to document. So I feel like, again, if we start looking at AI as just a tool instead of a solution to a problem, I think a lot of the scary spookiness around it will kind of die down. But yeah, I kind of view it as one and the same.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, it's similar to when the cloud hit and people were hit with massive cloud spend. You could bring AI in and have, if you're burning up the tokens, you can have some really expensive inference bills as well. So keeping an eye on that, and actually, doing your homework up front and trying to accurately project. Okay, here's how many input, here's how many output, here's the volume, here's what we think it's going to cost us. Sometimes that may make AI a bad fit for that problem you're trying to solve, because it's just not going to add up and be cost efficient.
Michael?
Yeah, that actually brings up a good question. What do you think your companies, other companies are going to do when those tokens stop being as subsidized as they are?
I guess it depends on how much value, I guess in a general sense, how much value the company found when they had it subsidized. So for us, particularly, we are, of course, we're a community, and so we expect for, we are ready for if there's one person in there or like 100. And we're also trying to have the overhead be as small as possible so that we can provide as much as we can to the community. And so as we see that specifically the AI agents is what our users interact with directly, as we see them use it more, and actually the whole thing about asking a question at 2 a.m. that actually happened. Someone was asking a question about like how to get a book, and so seeing that value, I feel like that just goes back to your customers, right? If your customers find value in it, your customers don't have to be people using the product directly. It could be people building on the product, because I believe that developers are a customer. That's why developer experience is huge and important. But I think it depends on if the customers or if the business sees it as valuable, then like we will, if we need to pay for more, if the customers are paying for it and we find value in it, we're going to keep upping the agents if we need to. So.
Dr. T.
I got a question on the string.
Oh.
It says, do you think that the industry will or should prioritize current employee protection and education over short-term AI value? Or is this an adapt or die environment?
Real quickly before I jump into that one, I just want to one other thought on there. If you're really worried about the inference costs, making your own environment, your own infrastructure, deploying your models to your own environments is a way to put a fixed cap. You're never going to get charged more than the hardware that you bought to run it on. So there are strategies to go about and do that. And models are beginning to get deployed now to ever smaller devices. And so there will be a little bit of a reduction over time in the dependency to hit all those really expensive cloud resources, should they get that way, because you've got more local options in your own environment to do that. Sorry, to go back to your question.
Can you repeat that question, Dr.
Yeah.
T?
Yes. Do you think that the industry will or should prioritize current employee protection and education over short-term AI value? I think what the question is asking is, do you think that companies are going to force employees to kind of get into AI? There's a level of protection and education that needs to happen, and that they will provide for us, or do you think it's like a adapt or die? Like, if I don't want to participate in using AI as an employee, that's what I gather. I'm just reading the question, y'all. I promise you. Just listen, if I butchered it, baby, I'm sorry. That's not on the screen right here. But basically, he's saying, he might not want to deal with it. Like, do you think that he's going to have to adapt or get out? Like, do you think this is the end for him?
There's an expression that's gone around for a while, which I think is very true, that AI isn't going to take your job. The person that knows AI better than you is going to take your job, right? So I don't think there's any sense of companies protecting employees from AI. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. At the same time, adapt or die is harsh, right? But I don't think it's companies forcing employees to learn. I think it's just the industry, right? Like, we all have to keep up, or at some point, yes, we're going to get pushed out by those who are keeping up. And that's just the reality of it, right? But I don't think it's the company's responsibility to protect employees from industry changes.
Well, I'm thinking of it from a different perspective, not just for software engineering, but I know a lot of companies, of course, in the past they just used basic monitoring, but now they're actually using AI to monitor people's work, and I think that should be looked at a lot more, because I feel like a lot of people were thrown into that. So I think AI in general, as with most things like copyright, I do think that we as humans, with anything we interact with, should have barriers and processes around it to kind of protect us in a way. And so from that, I think it might be a conflict of interest of the business having the business do it, but I think we as a whole should just agree to either work for businesses that do certain things that we don't like, or not work for businesses that we don't like, because there's always going to be a business that does something that you don't want them to do, right? But yeah, I do think that it's kind of hard to get away from AI now, because a lot of places even just automatically have the PR request come through, right? So, but I do think that they shouldn't force them to use it in their everyday life. They shouldn't force them to have to write code using it. I personally don't agree with that. But I do agree, though, that if you don't learn it, there's a possibility that someone else can come behind you with that experience, depending on what they're looking for, can deter you. So.
Or even when you go interview for your next job and you're asked how you use AI.
Yep.
You better have a good answer for that right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not just I use Copilot. That's not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
On the flip side, there are also industries that are heavily regulated with a lot of red tape, right? And those are going to be a little bit slower. I'm not a developer, but I almost wonder if these, let's say a heavily regulated healthcare company is going to have to build their own, what would you call it, code creator or whatever, right? So I think there will continue to be some industries, right, that will be slower behind the curve, or maybe significantly further behind, right? So take there.
Yeah, I would just encourage everyone to it starts with the education. I mean, I think it's always worthwhile for companies to invest in their employees' education, which is great. I think, AI is just not going to go away. So you can try to, put your head in the sand and hope it won't hit you or affect you. But I think it's not going to go away. It's going to be just a factor everyone has to deal with at some point, some way, somehow. Either whether it's, if you're a developer or not. So the more you know about it, and the more you know how to utilize it as a tool, and the better off it's going to be, and the less anxiety you'll have worried about, is AI coming to get me?
And again,
flip that around a bit and say, in response to your answer, which I think was a good one, what do you think a good answer to the question in an interview context? How do you use AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think
what would you be looking for as a
Yeah, I mean, I think the initial answer that many people gave was, like if I have a question, instead of using Google, now I use GitHub Copilot, right? And that was cool at one point. Now I think it goes much beyond that, right? It's not just, putting questions into AI, it's really using AI in a much more integrated way, using MCPs and all the other ways to kind of access data and kind of pull things together, as well as having an opinion around like which models work better for which tasks, right? Like based on the task you're doing, what sort of model should you even be asking? Should you use, the OpenAI? Should you be using Claude, right? There are different models that are good at different things, and knowing those nuances, I think, is important, as well as having a really strong opinion and, kind of examples of when you've disagreed with AI and kind of how you've handled that, or maybe how you've mentored other folks to kind of know when to push back or know when to go a different direction. I think all of those sorts of things are better than just, I use it to, fix bugs when I get stuck.
And healthcare is really all in on AI already.
What's up?
Healthcare is already all in on AI for a big company.
Okay.
any other thoughts there? Kind of back to the question Dr. P asked, even if you're not an engineer, right, like AI is going to obviously like impact a lot of other industries as well, right? So I feel like everyone's going to be using it eventually. So yeah, just another thought there. What other questions?
I have a question, sticking with the interview kind of topic that we're on right now, and this may be a better question for a moderator, maybe a part of the panel. How has the use of AI changed the way that people are applying to jobs? Are cover letters even important nowadays when you can crank them out in 10 seconds?
I've never been a fan of cover letters because I feel like they've always been kind of just like boilerplate templates. Sometimes you can tell when there's a cover letter that was written specifically for that opportunity, and those can go an extra, extra way. But a lot of times, right, people, especially if you're looking for a job for a while, right, I know that can be really frustrating and really exhausting. And if you are applying to 30 jobs a day and you're doing 30 cover letters, like that's so exhausting, right? I know it, right? There are candidates I've walked through for months trying to help them get a job, and I know that can be difficult. But in terms of like how AI is impacting applications, obviously I see people complaining on LinkedIn and NashDev, all the time about like, hey, this job was posted 10 minutes ago. There's 500 applicants. I assure you, 98% of those are bots or like a service somebody's using. Little secret here. Might get my hand slapped, or you guys might not like me for this. We've gotten to the point where if we post jobs, we don't even like looking at the applications anymore. Like our boss has to like tap us and say, hey, go look at those applications. We're like, we already know what it is. It's a bunch of fluff. Like, so connections really do go an extra distance. I know a lot of you guys don't like recruiters, but recruiters are the people who are going to be able to take your resume directly to a hiring manager. Now there's good recruiters and there's bad recruiters. I'm the least aggressive recruiter of all time. I'm not a sales guy at all. In fact, I kind of let candidates push me around a little more than I should. But I say all that to say, like, AI is impacting the job market. I think there are going to be tools that are built over the next few years that are going to eliminate the spam, we'll call it, right? I think there are going to be, I wouldn't be shocked if there's a competitor to LinkedIn in 3 years where, people, are verified, that we know it's not a bot. I have a buddy who's an engineer, and he was building a service where, I don't know, I would be kind of curious y'all's take on this. He was building a service where you could only apply to 10 jobs a week, right? So you have to be really selective about what you apply for. So I think we're going to start to see some maybe new tools or platforms that come out that can kind of help curb that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's a data collection workflow, right? You're putting together a resume and a cover letter as a data delivery, and someone's going to review that, consume it, then ingest it or not, or it's a data collection issue. And I think AI changes data collection processes significantly. So already there's companies out there that do avatar-driven natural language conversation interviews on demand, right? So your first screening might not even be with a person at a company. You click a link and you're talking to an avatar and it's asking you questions and just speaking to you normally, and that's probably, like, I could see that kind of scaling and getting pretty popular because it's very easy to implement, but it probably won't be long before there's some type of a service that doesn't want you to put together a resume. It's going to want to make an MCP call to a GitHub service that will tell it all about the code that you've written and how well it performed and what you did. I mean, it's just going to, I think it's going to continue to be a moving target on data collection, and the traditional resume and cover letter part is just going to kind of go away. But for now, it's still the thing that happens a lot. And there's, I think, as many AI processes combing through submitted applications and sorting them and grading them, and you're having AI talk to AI at some point in a lot of those situations.
You mentioned having, it look at GitHub. Please don't look at my GitHub repos. I have too many test repos in there. But to speak to your point, and another plug, if this is something that you are a little shaky on, but the connection and the soft skills, I feel like, are just they've always been important. And I also wonder if you've seen the applicants' soft skills, levels change, or they have less soft skills or more. But I can ask you that question later. That's just for my own curiosity. But we at Repton Tech, we actually we do teach skills, but we also focus on, so Repton Tech is our name, but R stands for reputation, I stands for influence, and T stands for tech. Tech is just what we're great at. And we also know it's a really great place for neurodivergent people to join and to be financially stable, yada, yada, yada. But learning those soft skills are just as important, and learning how to make those connections, because this hasn't changed because of AI, but before, resumes were already looked at with keywords, right? They already had things to remove it, but now it's, oh, I see this name. Have I seen that name on LinkedIn, right? Does this seem familiar to me? Does this feel human, right? Because I think AI just removes the whole human aspect of it, right? So it's just AI switching with AI, right, at this point. But if and you tell me if I'm wrong, if I were a recruiter and I looked at something that said maybe Trinity, and I saw myself on LinkedIn, I would say, okay, I'll put this in a pile to look at later, right? I know this is a true person. I trust that this is a person because I've seen them before, right? This could be a bot, so this is my little pile where I will filter through with bots, right? So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about how to work on those, I'm not a salesman either, but I kind of have to be sometimes. But if you want to join, again, we have 8 spots available for if you want to learn a little bit more about the soft skills. So.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, there's definitely so many fake profiles out there, right? I cannot tell you how many calls I hopped on in the last 2 years, and they'll say they're in Nashville, and I'll be like, what part? And they're like, Broadway. I'm like, oh, near what? And they're like, yeah. Or someone said they were in Nolensville, and I was like, oh, where? And they said, Broadway. And I was like, there's not a Broadway in it's just crazy. Yeah. So on that point, I would say, there's definitely an element of hey, I know Trinity is a real person. I'll put her, in the spot. So I don't know how that relates to you guys. I would say a profile picture on LinkedIn does help. I know that's controversial. If you're super security minded, I get it. But man, like I even have a buddy who's a great engineer. I've known him for 10 years before I even got into recruiting, and his picture is AI generated on LinkedIn. And I'm like, and he's worked for a bunch of crypto companies for like 5 years. And I'm like, if I came across your profile, like I would know you're fake, but I know you're a real person. So it's kind of like some things to think about there.
So the history of a cover letter, right? Does everybody know why cover letters came about? Right? They were used as a writing sample, right? Like in the old days when writing was really important, right? They'd use a cover letter to gauge your actual writing quality, right? My take on cover letters is don't do them now, right? Like it's not worth it. When I used to be a hiring manager, I never read cover letters, right? Even if they were submitted, I didn't read them. Don't care, right? Maybe it sounds harsh, but I think there are better ways to get your message across, right? Your resume should tell your career story, right, in 1 or 2 pages, right? And that should be enough. You shouldn't have to like write some number of paragraphs and then say the exact same thing that you're trying to say with your resume. If you're searching for a job, my best advice is to have a plan, right? And back that plan up with a routine. Have a friend, because you don't want to do it alone. It's pretty miserable, right? And I think a big part of that now is kind of finding ways to expand the concept of a resume, not a cover letter, but a resume, right? A resume is not just a piece of paper anymore. Yeah. It's LinkedIn, it's online presence, it's content, it's networking, it's all these different things that go into kind of your resume, quote unquote. But I don't think cover letters are part of that. I think that's a very outdated concept.
I just realized I did not close on a point earlier. I was talking about cover letters. The point I was trying to get to is, if you're applying to a lot of jobs, don't worry about cover letters because you're exhausted enough, and they add very minimal value, if any. I would agree with him. I've read just a number of cover letters, and it's because I know immediately it's very specific, it's addressing me. But I also kind of am curious how will AI change that, right? Because AI is going to get really good at sales pitches and trying to analyze who I am and things like that. So I wouldn't be shocked if cover letters just completely go away. Back corner, and then we'll get to you.
So, it's kind of tagging on to what you're saying. Like, recently I just used so many people, like, connecting in the past, and they're just posting a whole bunch of shit created on whatever AI platform. They're just posting those messages, and I think it's increasing the influence. That actually, I think it's really decreasing the influence, really. So similar to the cover letter story you're telling. So, like, in this stage, I've observed a lot of influence actually coming from genuine connection and their thought and ideas. YouTube is a great example. They see a lot of that. So, like in this AI era, like how do you see foster that kind of genuine creativity and interest and so on instead of this AI generated junk?
There's definitely a lot of AI content out there. I started posting on LinkedIn this past January because I'd never been on social media before, and I just figured I'd try it. And it's been a really interesting experience. I attempted to post every day for a number of months, and I've kind of lost it now. But through that, I made a lot of really interesting connections that I wouldn't have otherwise, right? Where we actually, friends might be going a little far, but like we actually talk back and forth, right? It's more than just, hey, refer me right now, right? We actually have conversations. And so I think putting yourself out there that way and writing real content, not just asking AI what are things you should say, right? But posting things you actually feel or things that have happened to you experience-wise. I think that's a great way to meet other people, to then start to form those connections. And there is a little bit of strategy there, right? If you think, well, someday I'd like to work for, I don't know, Airbnb, or I want to work for whatever the company is, right? Well, maybe start to form connections there before you ever need them, right? You think of a career as like a chess match almost, right? You need to be thinking a couple plays ahead of where you're at, and not wait until, I was laid off, or I really want to change jobs, but shoot, I don't have any of the connections or any of the strategies that I need in place.
Yeah, I would second that. If on social media platforms, LinkedIn, what have you, you'll see so much content on there that's just AI slop, comments that people put in. But if you can find some of those good connections and make meaningful, authentic comments on posts that those individuals make, it will stand out. They can, just the same way that you can see that AI-generated headshot. If you have an authentic post, I think people, when they read that, and they always read what you post on their comments, right? They will see that, and you can build a little bit of a connection that way. And that's one way to kind of break through. But you have to be intentional, to do it. And it takes, to your point, like, I applaud a post today.
Well, like I said, I only
That's a
maintained
lot.
it for a couple months, so I've kind of backed off now, but it was an interesting experiment.
Yeah, that's good.
And I would say be authentic as well. Be yourself. You guys have seen me, like, I know my pros and my cons, and don't be afraid to, like, show the world your cons. Don't be afraid to say, like, reach out to, Brandon at Vaco or whoever, a recruiter, and say, hey, I've been struggling to find a job. Can you help me? Like, ask humans for help. I talk to some people all the time who are just like, they're looking for a job for 7 months and they're just constantly selling themselves. I'm like, who are you really? Like, I don't feel like I'm actually getting to know the real you. But what were you going to say, Trina?
I was just about to say kind of two things, and actually I'm going to make sure I don't forget the second one. So the first thing, I kind of have an experience with using AI. I am not on social media a lot. Not as, of course I've had LinkedIn for a while, so I've probably been on social media a little bit more than you have, but I wouldn't count it. That's all I would say. But so I have probably been one of those people that has posted like one message from, but I think for me, it was not from, and also something that I tell a lot of my mentees as well. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to start. And sometimes you need a start, right? So if you go back to probably any of your favorite authors, if you have an author, if you go and read their first book, it's probably not that good, right? Or their first paper. Their first book might be good, right? But you have to have a starting point. So I would advise for you to, instead of just rejecting it, look in the comments more, because the comments are usually where you can feel if that person's more authentic, because I would post something on there just to get interaction, and I would message people in the comments. So of course, if that's a huge turnoff for you, keep scrolling, but I really advise commenting and building that connection, because just knowing people is everyone knows people now, because the internet, I've seen so many faces, right? But if I build a connection with someone, then I remember that connection instead of, I remember this. It's more of a feeling of, I trust this person more because I just know certain things about them, right? Or know certain keywords, which is why branding is also very important, which is something else that we teach at Reps and Tech. But yeah, so I think that connection, and it's sometimes, don't write it off immediately. Of course, if you go to a page and they're all just the same thing, okay, yeah, you can probably write that off as a bot, but sometimes it's a great place to start.
Another question is, like yesterday I went to Meetup, and one interesting conversation is we're using AI tools in the last couple of years, and it's being progressive and getting more productive, and we just feel like dumber as a developer, get a lot of skills, and how do you keep updated to the new way, or are you changing the way you work, not just in the tooling, but also trajectory of how you think about careers?
I don't think I feel dumber, I feel more frustrated. Like the level of cursing has definitely gone up progressively with AI. Because as soon as you see it work once, you want it to keep happening again and again, right? But then it does it and you get really angry. So I don't feel like I'm losing skills, but I feel like I get frustrated a lot more often than I used to.
Luckily, being frustrated is something you have to learn how to get used to as an engineer. But I do agree, there's a lot of me going back and editing saying, that's not what I wanted, please. And sometimes I just end up just writing it, going straight back to Google, right? So, yeah.
Well, you get a glimpse of how good it could be once in a while.
Yep.
And then when that doesn't happen, you get like, oh, why?
Yep, that's why you keep using it. I keep using it even after I'm frustrated, because I know it has that potential, right?
Right.
Just blow the context away whenever it messes up.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Start over.
All right.
Well, one more question?
1:07:20.
Oh.
We have one more question?
We did.
Okay.
We'll make it snappy. Yeah.
You gotta take the last one.
Sorry.
I just wanted to, so back to your point about, people mass applying to jobs, with bots and services. I've actually had a friend that tried using these services, so, I just wanted to bring up a point. A lot of these services use these third-party mail services. So one of them is Neuron Mail, one of them is Whisper Post. So you could actually filter a lot out of those out and purely just use either Gmail, Outlook, or the main used ones. Another very big thing is that ATS systems are very unreliable, especially when it comes to LLM injection. So what a lot of people do with the resumes is they take a lot of technical terms, they inject it on the top of their resume, make the font size 1, and just turn it all white. So it's completely invisible, and the ATS system will sometimes lie to you. So I just wanted to bring up that point because I thought it might be useful to you.
Yeah, great point.
The mini invisible font, yep.
It's surprisingly effective. I had a friend try it. His resume score with an ATS checker was 43.4. After it shot up to over 80. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty solid metric.
Crazy.
Well, if you would, give it up for our panel for taking the time. Questions? Yeah, we didn't know. You guys don't always engage. We had this workshop class one time. Nobody wanted to go along with cursor or Claude, what have you. So we were like, okay, let's make some questions. Let's see if they have questions. That was the kind of deal there. Anyway, we will switch slides here. If I can. Okay. The first raffle is destination. Destination. Not the right one. Oh, that's where it went.
It's an unfortunate spot to sit.
Okay. The mouse.
Names.
Okay, good lord. Is everyone up there that wants to be up there? Last call.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
I love it, right?
I think I won it though.
Oh, yeah?
I think it was Zane. It was on his name.
Yeah, it was Zane.
Is this like all expenses included? Like you'll fly us out there and hotel and?
Travel, a little bit of a
No.
challenge.
Worth a try.
Are expensive. Okay. I just need to find the mouse. The mouse is here, the mouse is there. Okay. Last call for names. Good?
I'm just kidding. Spin it.
No, I'm kidding. I'm good.
Spin the wheel.
Guy?
Yeah, yes, please, thank you.
All right.
I need to give you the guy. You're also gonna make me dizzy. Oh, it's Frank.
Frank!
All right. That's winner number 1.
Job, Frank.
I think it's rigged.
Go ahead and.
Did Frank build this app?
All right, and we have our second name here.
Oh, it's gonna be close. Oh man.
Brian!
All right, we got our winners. Thank you for hanging out with us. Vaco has a firm. We got to be out of here at 8 o'clock rule. You're welcome to hang out and chat with the panelists if you want. Have some more refreshments, but 8 o'clock is the. Yeah.